Hey there YouTubers, and welcome to another video. In today's video we'll be reviewing a classic NES game, and that game will be Captain Skyhawk. Now, in my reviews I will be giving you the game date release, what platforms they released for, the synopsis of the game, how the gameplay goes and everything. So, let's get to it, to a gaming review of Captain Skyhawk. Sorry about that. Now, Captain Skyhawk was released in 1990 for the Nintendo Entertainment System in North America and in 1994 for the Nintendo Entertainment System in the PAL region. Now, in Japan, it was released a few months before North America, and the game, it was developed by Rare, which later on they became a publishing company as well, but at the time for the NES they were only developing for different publishers. So Rare developed this Captain Skyhawk and it was published by Milton Bradley. And let me give you a quick little history on Milton Bradley before I go on. Milton Bradley was a board game company that saw a huge success in toys and board game related stuff. So they got so into it that they became a multi-million-dollar company just selling board games and board game related toys and little knick-knack characters. Then they saw how hyped up the video game industry was with Atari. So they thought, why not? Let's jump in with Atari. They got into systems with like Atari, Coleco, and Intellivision, which then later on they stopped because they saw the crash and they were doing better with their board games. So then they saw the rise of Nintendo and the rise of Sega. So what Milton Bradley did, they went back into the video game publishing. So what they did was they hired on developing companies to develop games for them, and then they would publish it themselves. So they would pay a development team to develop a game, publish the game under set console that they planned on releasing, take profit from the sales, and then whatever is left, deal with the company or console that said game is released on. So there's that little history on Milton Bradley. Now let's get continuing to Captain Skyhawk. So as we were on, Milton Bradley published Captain Skyhawk, which was one of their more popular selling games on the NES. When they released this game, they were competing with the likes of 1942 and 1943, which at the time were the best shooter of all time on the NES at the time. So Milton Bradley saw the success of the 1942 and 1943 games and thought, why not? Let's make a shooter and hope we can get in on some of the profits, some of the sales and customers out of the shooting popularity. Because at the time, shooting games were becoming a new thing and they were hitting their heights. And by the time they hit SNES, they were the big. But we'll stick with the NES for today. So, Captain Skyhawk. To give you a little synopsis on what you do in Captain Skyhawk, all you're doing is you're an F-14 fighter jet, which in the game they call it an F-14 TV jet, which is a fictional name because Milton Bradley could not get the rights to use the F-14 fighter jet, so they had to put TV on at the end of it. But you know, when you're looking at it, it looks like an F-14 fighter jet. All you're doing is shooting aliens, because when you look at the beginning opening scene, aliens land on Earth, they took over Earth, they built different bases and stations. You have to go through destroying all the bases and stations, and once you do, at the end of each level, the boss is a random alien spaceship. You beat the alien spaceship, you move on to the next level. Captain Skyhawk only has 9 levels, so it's not pretty long. It's not as long as 1943, and it's sort of in the same length of 1942, but when you look at the ending, you want more. Because the way they ended, you want to kill more aliens, you want to shoot more. But looking at it, the first 7 levels are all practically the same until you get to the last 2 levels. They change up so much where, like, out of the blue, instead of being 1 ship, you got 20 ships coming at you. It's kind of that odd thing where they made it easy for you for the first 7 levels and then made it extremely difficult for the last 2 levels. For anybody who's really good at shooters or knows what they're doing, Captain Skyhawk is a pretty good game because when you get to the last 2 levels, you get some challenge out of it. Now, the good thing about Captain Skyhawk is that compared to 1942 and 1943, though they're based off of real war events where you're a North American fighter jet shooting Japanese jets, they took the idea from 1942 and 1943, ideas from older shooters where you saw in the Atari, Coleco, Commodore, where Space Invaders, asteroids, you're in space shooting. They took those ideas, combined it with 1942 and 1943, and you got yourself Captain Skyhawk. Pretty fun game in my opinion. I've played this game. I don't have an NES hooked up because I personally don't want to play the NES hooked up. I'd rather play it on my phone, and I played this game on my phone, which is pretty fun. It's not your 1942 or 1943, but it's got its things for it, like the aliens. The good thing about this, they took the color scheme to a whole new level for shooters. At the time, the color scheme was like very black, green, black, blue, white, like very plain. Like you can tell, oh, they just smacked a couple of paintbrushes on the game while they were developing. Nothing great. In Captain Skyhawk, Milton Bradley took their whole new concept that they had for board games and colors and brightness and popping and 3D and wowing the board game world into the video game world for shooters, and they made it so great that the color scheme is amazing, and it was the first ever full-on 3D effect game. Like before, you see just a simple 2D ships there. 1942, 1943 came. It was part 3D, part 2D. Captain Skyhawk became full-on 3D, and the color scheme was beautiful for its time. When you look at games today and compare it then, you're gonna be like, But if you know your games from 1990, it was an amazing improvement for what they did with Captain Skyhawk. Now, if you really want this game, it's not that expensive. This game, right now, it may go up in price knowing of its popularity and knowing the popularity of NES, SNES, and Neo Geo shooters and TurboGrafx shooters. It may go up probably the next year or 2. So right now is a great time to pick up a copy of Captain Skyhawk. Game only worth 10 bucks. And if you see someone tell you it's worth more, don't bother. This game is only worth 10 bucks. You can even come down to my shop. I have a copy of it sitting in the shop. It's only 10 bucks. It's a good game. The review I gave must be informative for you to make a decision to buy the game. And now, as always, enjoy life and keep on collecting.